Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast. And we got the news earlier this morning that San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk has requested a trade officially from the 49ers. This is not necessarily a massive surprise. Aiyuk has been sending signals that he was interested in a trade as he has been going through the contract negotiation process with the 49ers. Aiyuk headed into the final year of his rookie contract, and he has been, I think, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Maybe hasn't gotten quite his due. I was having a discussion with one of my cousins over the weekend, and we had a debate as to whether or not he can be a true number one wide receiver. And I didn't realize that there were quite as many people that were anti-Brandon Aiyuk until then, because I have seen Aiyuk since it was just about, halfway through it was either his rookie season or his sophomore season that he was really able to amp up the production level, and he's been electric since. Aiyuk was very highly regarded coming into the NFL, and I think that it just took him a little bit to be able to fully adjust, but once he fully got himself going, he kind of hit the ground running there, and he has been an unbelievable player who has been able to produce at a very high level despite the fact that he hasn't been the number one option in that San Francisco offense, where you look, wide receiver one would be Deebo Samuel. Christian McCaffrey probably even supersedes him as the 49ers number one offensive weapon, but Aiyuk still has had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. Last year had over 1,300, and again, that is on limited targets, just 105, so the yards per reception, he's been extremely efficient. And yeah, no doubt, there are other players on his offense that have been able to garner some of the attention of opposing coaches and defenses that maybe open up Brandon Aiyuk a little bit more in comparison to if he was the number one game plan threat for opposing teams. But either way, I still feel like Aiyuk is going to be able to translate as an effective option for years to come, and I think there are a number of teams that should, without hesitation, try and go and make a move for him. Aiyuk was just all-pro second team last year, and I would bet money that that's not going to be the final time that he does in his career. Now, if the 49ers were to consider a trade for him, and that's the thing, is before I even get into that, really at the end of the day, I just don't think he is going to be moved. I am sure with all the months of speculation that have surrounded Brandon Aiyuk at this point in the offseason, that if the 49ers were going to make a move off of Brandon Aiyuk, it would have been ahead of this year's draft. We don't see player-for-player trades in the NFL, so they probably would have wanted a first-round pick, maybe a day 2 pick as well, and some future compensation. But getting at least picks in the now that would be able to help potentially contribute to a Super Bowl this season. The 49ers are coming off of 2 straight NFC Championship appearances. They were in the Super Bowl last year, and they feel like their window is still wide open. And it really wouldn't make that much sense for them to move off of Aiyuk because he's not happy there. Obviously, there's the human element there, that what version of him are you going to get if he is checked out? But at the same time, I just feel like we've seen pretty consistently that these types of holdouts just don't play out well for the majority of NFL athletes, and that they end up costing themselves money. So I have a very hard time believing that Brandon Aiyuk would sit out the entirety of the upcoming season, and that he would be able to be a contributing player. Now, he's in a contract year, so it's not like you have to worry about him throwing anything. And Aiyuk is such an elite asset because as much as it is the receiving and being a consistent option. Didn't even mention the fact that Debo, for as great as he is definitely more of an injury concern there. So Aiyuk is almost the stabilizing force, and you can throw George Kittle in that conversation as well, somebody who's dealt with, and Christian McCaffrey as well, even though he's been healthy since coming to San Francisco. But you look at, there's an immense amount of talent on that 49ers roster, but I would say that Brandon Aiyuk has been the most available player for the 49ers since really his rookie season, where he's played in, I think he's missed just one game out of whatever the math would be on that one. 53 or so games, whatever it is. Don't like doing math live at the time, but yeah, 51 games. He's played in 50 of them, I believe, since 2021. So, and that game was this past year when the 49ers really weren't trying. So he's been extremely reliable for them. He's an integral part of not just their pass game, but he is one of the best blocking wide receivers in the NFL. Somebody who is going to give you 100% effort on just about every single play. And, ultimately, I think that you are going to see Aiyuk be able to have that same effect, no matter what team that he's on, and that he is going to bring an impactful approach to both the pass and run games for any team. And all of that to be said, again, I don't see it happening this year with an Aiyuk trade. They are all in. They understand they're going to be getting extremely more, and they're going to continue to be more and more expensive, that they're going to have to pay their players, most notably Brock Purdy, who has been on the cheapest deal in the NFL the past couple seasons and is now probably going to be making, there's a good chance he's going to hit that $50 million mark if Jared Goff did this past offseason. So they understand what is sort of looming in front of them in terms of financial handicaps. So I think they're going to be all in on this season, sort of similar to how the Bengals and wide receiver T. Higgins are just going to have to come to terms for this one season and give it their best go, because I don't know if I see proper financial compensation coming in the future. Now, for the Bengals and the T. Higgins example, it's sort of a no-brainer. They're going to have to pay Jamar Chase. They are paying Joe Burrow. I don't think you can pay a third wide receiver. When you look at the 49ers, it's an interesting conversation, because I would argue that Deebo Samuel, when healthy, is a better wide receiver than Brandon Aiyuk. But also at the same time, you have Debo and you have Aiyuk, who is probably a better bet long term in terms of the fact that he is still far younger than Debo is, and he has been, like I mentioned, extremely reliable from a health perspective the past few years. So I don't think it's quite as easy there for the 49ers. We'll see how this goes. They obviously just drafted a first-round wide receiver this past year, and Ricky Pearsall, who I have very high expectations for. Pearsall out of Florida. And, ultimately, I'm not sure how they're going to choose to go about this. Kyle Shanahan is an offensive mastermind, and I think he'll be able to scheme up a successful plan despite who is playing at wide receiver, and maybe they can be a little bit more interchangeable. But it's no doubt that Brock Purdy and Shanahan, to some degree, have benefited from the immense level of talent that has been surrounding them. So we'll see how that ends up playing out. I don't think that Aiyuk gets moved. I feel like there's a pretty good chance that after this season they could make a big move and end up actually clearing out some room for Aiyuk, but we will have to see there. Let me know what you think in the comment section about whether or not Aiyuk is going to be traded, what types of teams you would hope he gets traded to. I know personally, as a Patriots fan, I would be 100% in on Brandon Aiyuk if they were to look to trade for him. I think you can probably make up a number of different good fits for Aiyuk in the NFL, but again, don't see it happening necessarily this offseason. But we sort of referenced, at least earlier in the show, the idea of Tua Tagovailoa and my doubts with him. We are going to be doing a season preview for the Miami Dolphins next, that we will be going over their biggest offseason moves, their additions, their subtractions, and ultimately taking a look at their schedule and trying to predict how many wins they will win. So, how many games they will win, I should say. So, we're going to be diving into that, but first, a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.